Welcome to part 4 of the PLAAFP, a very important part of the IEP. Today we're going to be discussing information on the student's progress over the past year as it specifically relates to the IEP goals. My name is Dina Crook. I am the Parent Education Coordinator for the Lake Travis CPAC. I have taught at Texas State University for 20 plus years. I'm currently retired. I've also taught special education and been a dyslexia therapist in the public school system. I want to remind you that as a parent, you need to be an active and knowledgeable participant in the ARD or the ARD committee. So remember to request a draft copy of the IEP. It would be very helpful if you could receive that draft copy no later than 5 school days prior to the ARD so that you can process through the IEP and be able to participate, ask questions, and make suggestions. Progress and current goals is a very important part of the PLAAFP section of the IEP. We typically do not have this, though, with an initial ARD meeting, but we should have it with an annual, a review, and or a dismissal. I'm going to talk specifically about annual ARDs and review ARDs. For an annual ARD, we want to know, did the student master or not master the current goals that were implemented the previous year? But we also want to know, what is that quantitative data that shows they mastered or did not master the goal? And that quantitative data should align to the way the goal measurement criteria is written. And we'll see that in an example. So we're just going to put a pin in that and come back to that. If a student did not master a goal, we want to have a great discussion about, why do we think the student didn't master the goal? If the student didn't master the goal, and it's by a huge amount, a significant amount, we should, as a committee, consider what compensatory services might be offered to that student because the goal was not mastered. Now, I said significant amount. If the student did not master the goal, but they were so very close to it and they have shown great progress over the scope of the IEP year, I'm not going to be upset as a parent because we can see that progress and the student didn't miss it by much. Review ARDs. If you're calling a review ARD or a review ARD has been called, there's for some reason that it's been called. So we need to know where that student is in making measurable progress towards their goal. We also need that reported in a quantitative style that aligns to the measurement criteria in the goal. Again, I'm going to show you examples so you know what I'm talking about. If the student is not making measurable progress, and this might be one of the reasons that the review ARD is called, we want to really talk about the why of that. We want to talk about what additional services or supports could be put in place to help this student make mastery towards the goal. We can also look at the goal and say, hey, maybe this goal is not as developmentally appropriate as we thought it would be for the student when we first wrote it. We need to revise the goal and statement, the measurement criteria, and that's okay because we want it to be developmentally appropriate for the child. So those are the kinds of conversations we have because we have the data about the goal directly in the PLAAFP statement of the IEP. Let's look at some examples. Here's an example of current goal progress from an annual ARD. It's a social skills goal, and the goal is stated in the PLAAFP. When engaged in a non-preferred topic of conversation in the social skills class, blank will respond with at least 2 follow-up questions and or thoughts, comments regarding a non-preferred topic, changing the topic in 3 out of 4 opportunities across 3 consecutive sessions. Okay, what are we looking for? We're looking for the student to be able to ask 2 follow-up questions, thoughts, or comments. So that's one part of the measurement criteria of this goal. And the student needs to be able to do this in 3 out of 4 opportunities. So when we go look at the data, that's what we're going to expect to see. We're going to see at least 4 opportunities measured, and then we're going to see the data reported for each opportunity. So we look at down below and we see trial 1 and it's dated, which is very important. A date tells us that the data was taken within a reasonable amount of time frame of the reporting of this goal. So we're going to assume that the annual goal is going to be somewhere at the beginning of April, looking at these dates. I don't have data from October because October data would not be present, but I have very current data here. It's within the second and third grading period close to the annual ARD. Okay, so trial 1, the student asked a comment and a question. So that was the 2 things that were talked about in the goal. Trial 2, the student talked about feelings and a comment. 2 things that were said in the goal that they had to be able to do. Trial 3, comment and a question. And trial 4, comment and a question. So this student has mastered this goal because across 4 opportunities, the student was able to ask 2 follow-up questions or thoughts or comments about a non-preferred topic. And she exceeded the expectation by doing 4 out of 4 and not 3 out of 4. So this goal has been mastered. Here's another example of a statement from an annual ARD. Blank did not meet his annual IEP goal of 134 words correct per minute with 96% accuracy in 3 out of 4 data probes. So when I look at this, I see the dates that the probes were given, and they're all within a reasonable amount of time frame of the annual ARD. And then I look at the words correct per minute. We expect at least 3 out of the 4 of those to read 134 or more. When I look at that, he was only semi-close with 125, but he's way below the mark in the other 3 probes that were given. So this is telling me that this student is not making his goal by a significant amount. While he did read all 4 probes with better than 96% accuracy for 3 out of 4, that in itself is not enough to say he mastered the goal. It's a 2-pronged goal. You have to meet both conditions, words correct per minute and accuracy. With this student, compensatory services were requested. I will say that it is not the ARD committee who could make the decision about the compensatory services that were requested because outside tutoring sessions were requested by the parent, and that can only come from approval from the executive director. Some things for compensatory services, like maybe going to extended school year services or increasing minutes in the schedule of services, those things can happen in the ARD committee, but having outside monies or monies to be used for outside services, those have to go through the approval of the executive director. And if that's the case and you're asking for that, you always put it in a statement written out, and you will document why, and this is a really good reason why, to do that and ask for that. Let's look at an example of goal progress from a review ARD PLAAFP statement. So I want to let you know that this review ARD was specifically called because the student was not making the measurable progress needed to be able to achieve the goal by the annual ARD. So the annual ARD goal said that the student would be able to solve 2-step word problems involving addition and subtraction up to 1,000 for 3 out of 4 problems across 3 out of 4 progress monitoring assessments or trials or opportunities. The teacher clearly noted that the student's not making the expected progress. The teacher gave us the data for that across 3 different trials and dates that data. And then the teacher notes, and this is such a key thing, that teacher just needs to kiss her brain for doing this, but she notes that the student was able to use the correct operation, selected the correct operations to solve the word problems, but the student struggled with the calculating part, and that's why the student did not get the answers correct, was because of calculation errors. So this is great discussion for the ARD committee. They could decide, hey, let's discontinue this goal and let's go backwards and work on being more successful on addition and subtraction up to 1,000 and make it a calculation goal and not a word problem goal. Or the committee could say, you know what, the student's in 5th grade, the student has continually struggled with calculations, part of their disability. We can see that in the FIE, why it's difficult. Let's add the condition of giving the student a calculator to be able to solve word problems. That concludes part 4 of this series on the PLAAFP, but I'm going to just reinforce one more time. Whenever you have an annual ARD or a review ARD, you always want to see progress on the goal. And progress should be noted in a way that is quantitative and aligns to the measurement criteria in the IEP goal. All right, see you for part 5.